Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, a recent lawsuit by Jay Paterno, the son of former Penn State football legend Joe Paterno, and Bill Kenny, a colleague of his, a former football coach at Penn State, have filed civil lawsuits. We're going to get a Penn State update from Charlie Thompson, who's the PennLive Harrisburg Patriot reporter who's been covering these stories for a long period of time. And then the status of Pennsylvania agriculture. We'll be back in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Some time ago on Pennsylvania Newsmakers, we brought Charlie Thompson. He's sitting across from me, Harrisburg Patriot News, PennLive. He's been covering the fallout from the Jerry Sandusky sexual abuse case, all things Penn State for the first half of this show. What brings Charlie here is a whole bunch of things, but first of all, another lawsuit. Charlie, right?
Yeah.
Explain to our viewers what this latest lawsuit's about.
Well, this week, Joe Paterno's son, Jay, filed lawsuit in federal district court in Philadelphia with another former coaching colleague at Penn State named Bill Kenny. And basically, it's not a wrongful termination suit as much as it's sort of our reputation as coaches was damaged by the taint of the Sandusky scandal, and Penn State let it happen because your board commissioned this free report that accused everybody at Penn State of a cover-up. We had nothing to do with the cover-up, but we can't get coaching jobs because of our association with Penn State.
And aren't they also arguing that they're owed something like 6 months in back pay, I think? And
yeah. Now that is perhaps of the whole suit the issue that may have the strongest legs. They make an argument that under Paterno there was a sort of an unwritten rule that you get 18 months of severance pay after the completion of the academic year in which you're let go. But that clock doesn't start running until July 1st of the next fiscal year. Yeah. They said that when Bill O'Brien came in with his staff and there was no room for Jay Paterno or Bill Kenny, the plaintiffs in this suit, they started the 18-month severance package running in January, so they feel like they're due a half year's pay there that they didn't get.
And as you point out, Jay Paterno and Bill Kenny were football coaches, assistant football coaches, obviously. We want to make that clear. All right, I want to move on. Is the case against Graham Spanier, the former president of Penn State University, ever going to come to trial?
That's a very, that's probably one of the number one questions that you get in Penn State circles when people think about the Sandusky scandal at this point. It really rests in the hands and the gray matter of Dauphin County President Judge Todd Hoover right now. I mean, he's got this issue before him, this big key pretrial issue as to whether or not the former general counsel at Penn State, Cynthia Baldwin, may testify for the prosecution against Spanier, Curley, and Schultz.
Because she worked for him and was at the grand jury? Go ahead, explain that.
Yeah, or if she's should not be allowed to testify, and perhaps the charges ought to be thrown out because she was in the room when Spanier testified for the grand jury. Okay. But she was in the room as the attorney for Penn State, when Spanier argues, I believed that she was in the room representing me. Therefore, I went into the grand jury without counsel, and I was deprived the right to counsel. And by the way, she heard my secret grand jury testimony when she shouldn't have if she wasn't representing me individually.
That's an interesting argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, not with getting into the merits of whether there was a cover-up or not, right? That was an interesting argument they made.
Sure, and I mean, people hate to see criminal charges thrown out on technicalities, and judges are loath to do it. But in this case, there is an important issue that Hoover is wrestling with, and because it's pretty fundamental that you get the right to defense counsel that is not conflicted by other representations and that sort of thing.
And there's at least 2 other Penn State officials who have been charged, right? A former
athletic director Tim Curley, and Gary Schultz, who was the senior vice president for business and finance.
Where does all that stand?
Well, they're all tried. They would all be tried together with Spanier at this point. Now, if Hoover says Hoover may strike a ruling that says Baldwin may testify because she was representing Penn State, and she did not know there was a conflict because she did not know that Spanier, Curley, and Schultz were allegedly lying. And when she found out about that, she duly reported that to the prosecutors. So it may go forward. If that case goes to trial, Spanier, Curley, and Schultz are scheduled to be trialed together, but that may be another round of pretrial matters because they may decide, if they know they're facing a trial date, they might decide, hey, Judge, I'd like to split mine off and have a separate trial. Somebody might plead guilty and
all right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, the Penn State trustees hired Louis Freeh, a former FBI director, to conduct an investigation, and he came back with this report that alleged there was a cover-up and that several Penn State administrators allegedly were part of the cover-up. So factually, if I'm wrong, you'll correct me. I think I'm right about that. Now there's a new crop of trustees who say, whoa, maybe we ought to revisit that. I'm going to talk to Charlie about that. And then also, Penn State is actually doing quite well. We're going to give you some positive news about the university. We'll do that after a break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to the program. I'm talking with Charlie Thompson. He's with the Harrisburg Patriot News and PennLive. He's been covering all of the fallout from the Jerry Sandusky sexual abuse case, and there's a lot of it. One of the aspects of it that I want to ask Charlie about has to do with some Penn State trustees now want to revisit the entire Freeh report. Now remember, that was a report in which the Penn State board asked Louis Freeh to conduct. Now, what's going on? How did it get to these trustees? What do these trustees want?
Well, the alumni at Penn State get to directly elect 3 trustees to the board every year. Over 3 years, the angriest alumni, angry about the hasty firing of Joe Paterno, the NCAA sanctions, the whole 9 yards, and basically the black eye that Penn State sustained in this case when they feel it was a Jerry Sandusky problem.
Right.
Those angry alumni have, year by year, now elected 3 times 3 alumni trustees that want to see Paterno restored to a place of honor in the university, that want to renounce the Freeh report, et cetera, et cetera. They have 9 members on the board now. And in this most recent wave, some very powerful alumni trustees got put on that board. Al Lord, the former CEO of Sallie Mae, the nation's largest student loan organization.
And
Bob Duvalier,
a former president pro tem of the
State
Senate. Yeah.
And Alice Pope, who's been a major alumni activist. So together with Anthony Lebrano, who's been sort of the vocal champion of the alumni side, these 3 new trustees, actually the group of 9 now, feel like they have enough muscle that they went to the board at the July meeting and they said, it's time for us to revisit the Freeh report. And what they want to do, they say, is complete the investigation. They say that Louis Freeh's investigation reached conclusions that really weren't supported by evidence and that they want to see another round of investigation that might include...
Well, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Why don't they just hire Dick Thornburgh,
Well,
former Attorney General and governor of the state who did a investigation hired by the Paterno family, and I think he used some words like rushing to judgment, if I got that right. They could just hire Governor Thornburgh to do it.
Yeah, well, you know...
I'm half joking
I know,
about that.
and who knows... They haven't gotten that far in the discussion because this will be a battle. There's this group of 9 doesn't have too many other votes outside of the 9. Mm-hmm. But there are only, I think the number is 10 trustees now that are still in office who were on the board on that fateful November 2011 meeting where they ousted Spanier and they fired Paterno and they commissioned the free report.
Right.
So the balance kind of hangs in this third group of 10. Huh. Most of them have been kind of appointed through the establishment channels.
Right.
We think, if we handicap it, that, well, it's hard to say because they may want, you know, this is the one issue that is really the open wound at Penn State. The free report and the aspersions that it cast and the sanctions that it led to. So they might try to strike a compromise and say, look, we'll do some limited reinvestigation, but it's going to be discussed in executive session in August and
see where it goes?
Or maybe, I'm not sure if that's going to be an executive or open session, but it's going to be discussed in a special trustees session in August, and then presumably they're going to vote on it. Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, executive session in August because of all the legal cases.
All the legal cases.
And then September they'll give it a vote.
All right, but look, there's some pretty good news out of Penn State having to do with student enrollments and fund. Give us an update. We're going to be positive about the leading university.
And this is the great untold story, really. I mean, you know, for as much hand-wringing as there has been about the Sandusky case, one of my colleagues, Anna Orso, took a look at Penn State and how it's doing 2.5 years after, nearly 3 years after Sandusky was charged now. And by almost any measure, this is a university that you'd love to be part of. You know, they have just set another record in applications for undergraduate admission, so students want to be there. The alumni and other philanthropists are supporting it to record levels. They just completed a multi-year $2 billion capital campaign that much of it was undertaken in the middle of this, you know, worst scandal ever.
Right.
Research grants going into the university and its various arms are at record highs. And in the great national barometer of universities now, U.S. News and World Report, Penn State is 38th in the nation. Not too shabby. No. I think it might be the highest they've ever had. And, you know, so really, the point there is that on the ground, the living, breathing university that students go to and the teachers teach at is very much in good shape.
All right, look, I want to thanks for the great update, and I think for all the folk, Penn State's a great university, and you know, on a path it looks like they're doing additionally great things. All right, it's summertime, it's July. Agriculture, you can't go anywhere with seeing Pennsylvania fruits and Pennsylvania vegetables and other kinds of agriculture on sale. We're going to get an update from Chris Herr. We're going to take a look at the status of Pennsylvania agriculture in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Well, welcome back to the program. Joining me is Chris Herr. He's the Executive Vice President at PennAG Industries Association. We're in the midst of the growing season. I'm not going to get into the debate about whether agriculture is the number one, Chris will smile at this, number one industry in the state, but he tells me, he's the expert, $70 billion. That's a little bit of change, isn't it?
Hey, it puts us right up in the discussion about who's number one.
Yeah, but I mean, the more important thing is agriculture is a huge industry in the state. It's something that we normally don't think about. Give us a thumbnail sketch of the production, what we produce, and then we're going to talk about some of the difficulties and the problems, you know, changing the technology. What's the status? Give us an update.
Sure. Well, Pennsylvania, normally where you think we're located up here in the Northeast, wouldn't be a traditional big ag state. But we rank in the top 30 or top 10 in 30 different commodities, so we're a very diverse state. We have over 60,000 farms in Pennsylvania, almost $7 billion of activity off of those farms, and another 63 to $65 billion more in value added. So we are a big player in agriculture, and we're sort of a bellwether for a lot of the issues. We're upstream from Washington, D.C. We're close by to the animal welfare folks, the folks who live on the Chesapeake Bay and want to talk about water. So many things that happen on a national level eventually happen here in Pennsylvania first from an ag perspective.
All right, is the value of the product sold up or down? I mean, is it on the rise? Is it declining? What?
Pennsylvania is a growing agriculture state. In some commodities, we're as high as 21% above what we were just a few years ago. Because of where we're located close to the population of much of the United States and Canada, we're an ideal place to process products, and that has led to a growing agriculture industry here in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. What are the crops that, I mean, I go and I see a lot of feed corn and tobacco, still tobacco, even despite the debate over the use of it?
Well, because of the plain community that we have in much of Pennsylvania, tobacco is still a crop. It's a monocrop from that perspective. About 75% of the ag income comes from livestock. We're top 2 in egg production. We're top 5 in dairy production. One of the big broiler producing states. So again, heavy in livestock because of where we're located and the processing facilities we have here.
Yeah. One of the concerns that I think you've expressed over time is that we don't spend a lot of our disposable income on food, but on the other hand, it's something that we demand, and yet there's not a complete understanding of the processes that go through, that farmers have to go through to produce it, and the changes that have taken place. Now, I live in Lancaster County. I think is that the largest county number of farms?
Number 1 non-irrigated ag county in America.
Yeah. And so we don't think very much of it. You can't go 3 miles. I can't go 3 miles, maybe 1 mile outside of the city and the suburbs of Lancaster to find, you know, lots of farms. So it's pretty traditional, but there is some concern about, you know, the smell, about waste and noise and dust. What would you say to our viewers about understanding what's going on, plus the needs to upgrade the technology?
Right. Well, there's a huge disconnect. I had a woman from one of your local counties here asked me why it was necessary to slaughter livestock when you can just go to the supermarket and purchase meat. So there's this there's this great disconnect.
Yeah.
The reality is that less than 2% of the U.S. population have a connection to farms anymore. So our big challenge is making people or allowing people to understand where their food comes from, how it's produced, that it's safe, that it's raised environmentally friendly, and the animals are humanely taken care of.
All right, we're going to run to break. I want to continue this discussion, particularly about, you know, the spending and what that means, and what consumers, I'm sure Chris would argue, need to understand about the changes. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. and by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Chris Herr from PennAG. We're getting into this whole business of Pennsylvania agriculture. We're in the growing season. I thought it's an important subject to sort of review. All right, Americans don't want to spend very much on food, but they want it raised, as you tell me, in the same way that their grandparents did. What's that all about?
Well, the reality is that Americans spend less than 10% of their disposable income on purchasing food, lowest in the world. But there's, with that, the socially conscious Americans want it a certain way. They want the farms to be pretty and green, but they don't want them to smell. They don't want them to work late. They don't want them to, in some cases, have animals. So we're running up a lot of different social issues involving agriculture that have created a lot of challenges. But we have some hunger issues. There's going to be 6 billion people in this world before long. In America, there's already 17 million people who are food insecure. In Pennsylvania alone, 1.6 million people. So we have
1.6 million who aren't sure where their next meal is. Is that basically what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. So while lots of people want to have cage-free organic eggs, there's just as many people here in Pennsylvania who just want to know where their next meal is coming from and that they can afford it.
Is the suburban sprawl, particularly in the eastern part of the state, sort of not at the heart of it, but one of the factors as the suburbs move out, encroach on the farmland, and you get this? Is that where some of the tension comes from?
That has certainly evolved, and you're from Lancaster County, so you've seen it happen. Lancaster County is kind of an interesting area because they seem to be the most tolerant, even though they've grown so quickly. But there's a lot of people who want to have that backdrop of a farm without having the things that go with it, and it creates lots of tension among the farm and suburban communities. Yeah,
but all in all, you're still very optimistic about farming in this state and young people. It's not something, who wants. It's still backbreaking, tough work. Not sitting there with a computer, I do every day on a keyboard.
It has changed. It has changed.
GPS
technology, you're going to have tractors and combines that are running without a driver before too long. We already have the technology in place. The computer technology and handheld technology that farmers are using, even older farmers your age, Terry, that are getting their information on their handheld telephone.
Good point.
But we need to be able to use that technology. We need to be able to use the technology that companies like Monsanto continue to put forward, so we can feed a growing population.
All right. Thanks for the update. All right. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.